Hello and welcome to a monthly review. My name is Mac Taylor, and today we're not podcasting. We're actually doing a review of films I watched last August. You see, we had camera problems and audio problems, filming location problems, and all sorts of problems that led to this getting pushed till I thought it was going to be fucking next August before the thing came out. So, we didn't go a year with it, but, I wrote the script a long time ago, so my thoughts are still the same on all these films. But we're going to be talking about 34 films and ranking them subsequently on the movies I watched this month. Now, the theme we went for was summer spectacle. It was things that made you feel like summer and things that were a spectacle. Wasn't really sure about that. You see, I just kind of threw it together because I was already kind of watched a couple movies. So some of the movies in here really don't make sense for the month theme, but they're in there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's dive into franchises like Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, and a bunch of other random shit. It's the monthly review. Number 34 is the 2019 film Dolls, not to be confused with the 80s film Dolls, which I have not seen. Spoiler alert, this film was total fucking garbage. I'm usually not super down on movies. Like, I can usually find some enjoyment in just about any film I watch, whether it's the acting, the lighting, writing, directing, something I could be like, well, that was interesting. This film literally had no redeeming value at all. And usually I like a good cheesy kind of concept like a killer doll, right? Like, I love the Chucky movies. But this movie had no sense of fun. It follows a writer and his daughter, who he has a terrible relationship with, as they inherit his mother's house, which is haunted by these attic dolls. And he finds these attic dolls and decides to write a children's story about the attic dolls, but he's possessed by the attic dolls. And the dolls don't the thing about a killer doll movie, right, is the doll itself needs to be seen moving about and being creepy, and even Annabelle, it's like she moves, it moved. And hardly anything like that happens in here. Like, when someone dies from the doll, it'll cut to the doll standing in a corner, and it's like, and then the guy's like, ah! But it's it's not fucking moving. It's just standing there. It's very annoying, very poor taste, and they really try to hammer home a fucking nursery rhyme where it's like, when you look away, the attic dolls play. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna want to look away from this movie because it's so fucking boring. Dolls, you're number 34. Next. Number 33 is a film I actually thought would be number 34, but Dolls, or should have been called Attic Dolls. However, just so I can knock this one up a notch. It's Friday the 13th, Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, which is one extremely long title. Typically it's just called Jason Goes to Hell, but it's technically Friday the 13th, Part 9. I really hate this movie. And the reason why I hate this movie is because, one, I really love the Friday the 13th movies. I was actually really excited to cover the franchise this month, or this month that had passed. But I knew not everyone's a winner. There were some ones I was kind of dreading watching. This being one of them. This is a movie I really try to not watch ever. Because for 8 movies, while things have changed, right? Like Jason being added to the story, or as far as the killer, to him slowly becoming a zombie and stuff like that. But they really fucking tried to change the lore in Part 9 about Jason has a family that is aware that they're related. and there's a town with that's famous for Jason Voorhees, and you can only kill him with a dagger from another family member, and like it's also linked to the Book of the Dead from the Evil Dead, which is how he was revived in the first place. It's like, what the fuck is going on in this movie? Spoiler alert, a Friday the 13th movie is not super hard to make. You have a bunch of teenagers who want to fuck, and you put them in the woods away from adults and you murder them. That is the fucking easiest thing, in retrospect, to write. Yes, you have varying degrees of quality there, but the setup is simple. And I understand wanting to, we've done this 8 times. This is the 9th time. Let's do something creative. I understand that. But you went a little overboard. If you really wanted to make something like Jason is body swapping, so they blow up Jason in the first couple minutes of the movie, and the rest of the movie it's like he's possessing a killer lawyer and a killer psychiatrist or a killer cop. That's not scary. We want to see Jason Voorhees as Jason Voorhees fucking people up. That's what we came to this movie to watch, right? We're not expecting an Oscar. And Adam Marcus defends it as wanting to be creative, but if you really wanted to be that creative, make a body swapping movie, a one-off movie of your own title, and put all this lore shit in it. Just don't use Jason Voorhees. It's the fact that you took the Friday the 13th name and did all this shit to it, which is why it's so offensive. If this was its own monster, I wouldn't hate it this much. But because it did what it did to a franchise I enjoy, it's number 33. Number 32 is a movie I was actually really surprised. Ended up as low as it did on this list. And that is Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Which, even though, spoiler alert, 90% of the movie takes place on a boat, Jason doesn't go to Manhattan until the last 15 minutes. And most of the New York City scenes are shot in Canada. So really the only actual Jason in actual New York stuff is on the main strip in the Times Square in New York City. That's like the only real New York shit. Like the back alleyways and stuff in New York are actually Canada. So it's Jason takes a boat, Jason takes Canada, Jason makes a very brief pit stop in Times Square. So they really tried to sell the New York stuff in the promotional campaign for this film, and there's not a lot in it. So it was a little disappointing if you're going in to see that. Also the fact that in this slasher franchise, we took him out of Camp Crystal Lake for one time, and the one time we do take him out of Crystal Lake, we put him on a boat, and we put him in New York City. Maybe there could have been a middle ground. It could Jason takes Maine before he goes to New York. Something of that nature. Also, I feel really bad for Kane Hodder. Because he has one of my favorite Jason portrayals. But 2 of the 4 movies he's Jason in are really bad. And the other 2 that he's in aren't the best. But he's great. So I feel bad he kind of got the short end of the stick when it came to the movies he was playing Jason in. Also, Jason is super slimy in this movie. He's covered in this goo the whole time. When did Jason get so gross? I don't understand. It's a weird step they took. I don't know why he was always just dripping petroleum jelly. And also, like, the makeup, like when Jason gets his mask knocked off in the sewer, is really bad. Laughably bad. Also, the Kid Jason flash, because I guess Kid Jason pulled Tina under, that's why she's afraid of water, but he also had hair, and why is Kid Jason in this random lake with this chick? And there's a lot of questions you could really ask about it, and why they were able to kill Jason with toxic waste, and why when they hit him with toxic waste did he revert back to a child. Some far out shit in this movie. However, we get the opening, which takes away the Friday the 13th Harry Manfredini theme, and we get this like an 80s rock song, and like the style, everything in this movie just screams 80s, and I love the 80s. I really do. So it's fun to see it, and it's not a movie that is completely deprived of joy. It's just compared to a lot of the other films on this list, it's pretty terrible. With the only real redeeming value being Kane Hodder in one kill where he literally punches a man's head off into a trash can. That was brilliant. Everything else in it. If you're going through a rewatch of the series, like I usually skip this one. Number 31 is Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland. This was my first experience with the Sleepaway Camp trilogy. Now, I know there is a Sleepaway Camp, or a Return to Sleepaway Camp movie that I was not able to get my hands on in time for this month review. Also, I know that somewhere out there there's a Sleepaway Camp 4, but it's like really hard to find. But I went with the original trilogy. They put it up on Shudder. And it's a series, at least the first one, I heard like a lot about, whereas the other two I didn't hear as much about, so the bar wasn't high, but I had some expectations. And I really enjoyed the first one, as you'll see on this list. The third one, I don't enjoy. Angela Baker in the first movie is very unassuming, very quiet, very mentally disturbed individual. And in the second and third film, she's like a one-liner spouting, comedic slasher villain, like a Freddy Krueger. And that doesn't fit her MO from the first film. Also, she somehow, even though she looks exactly the same, well, quotes, I mean, she's not a child anymore, but like you still weren't able to tell that's Angela Baker. Especially between the second and third, like this movie, they should know what she looks like, right? Like she didn't have plastic surgery done. Like I know she got a sex change in the second one, but like you should know this is Angela Baker, right? And she goes to a camp of troubled teens and murders them for being troubled teens. And it's like, yeah, these kids are assholes. It's the whole fucking point that they're here. So that didn't really make a lot of sense. But this movie was filmed literally like simultaneously with the second film. And I think the jet-lagged crew shows in this film because there's not as much interesting things going on. Like, even the kills are just kind of meh. Not a whole lot of real like standout shit in this movie. I think the kill where she gives the girl cocaine, but it's like Ajax, I think. That's an interesting kill. So, you know, that is its own thing. But just overall, the movie doesn't flow well. And again, I don't like the quippy Angela. It's just not my forte. Not my Will forte. Number 30 is Fred 3, Camp Fred. Yeah, that's something I watched. I knew I was going to do this because it's summer camp, and I was like, fuck it, I'll do the first Fred movie while I'm at it. The second one I could do some other time in October. But, most people hate this whole trilogy. And you'll find out a little bit later, I'm okay with the first Fred movie for what it is. But this one, I mean, there's no Fred 4, and I think there's a good reason why. I mean, there was that TV show for a little bit. But the jokes are already pretty lowbrow, in the first two movies. But in this one, they really just lowbarred it for the humor. He goes to camp, I want a pee-pee. And also his mom's barely in this, and she's part of the reason why I like the first one. And John Cena's only in this where he pops out of a fridge and was like, yeah, this place is gross, I'm out. And he's the reason why I like the other two movies as well. So, two of the characters I deeply enjoy, or not, I don't want to say deeply, but two of the characters I at least enjoy aren't there. Either iteration of Bertha is not in it, which I don't enjoy as well. And it's the typical summer camp movie plot, right? Where you have this group of losers at a rundown summer camp going up against the rich kid summer camp, always wins everything, and beating them, learning to work as a team and come together, blah, blah, blah. And that's done better in other movies. And this one is just kind of lazy because they have to beat Kevin's summer camp, because of course Kevin has to be the antagonist. They beat his camp in a rap battle. Yeah, it's bad. That's all bad. It's bad. Tom Arnold's also in this because Tom Arnold does anything. The only real redeeming value of this is Crocabera Moose. Don't you ever forget about Crocabera Moose. Number 29 is Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers. Told you I'd be talking about this one in a second. All the complaints I had about Sleepaway Camp 3 are also pretty relevant to this film. Why this one gets a bump or two higher, however, is there are some decent kills. Like the one twin sister gets barbecued, like set on fire, and it's a skeleton, like a charred skeleton. That's fucking funny. There's like a Jason reference, a Leatherface reference, a Krueger reference because she uses their weapons. Some of the characters, like there's that really buff counselor I thought was going to survive and didn't. And then also the guy who's like kind of the love interest for the main character played by Emilio Estevez's sister. And this has Bruce Springsteen's sister. A lot of sisters in this movie. I liked his character, and I didn't know he was going to die, and so that was kind of came out of left field for me. And just the scene at the end when she's singing the Happy Camper song with all these fucking corpses. There was some fun to be had there in a dark way, whereas in the third movie, it just didn't have any fun. However, I don't enjoy the quippy Angela Baker. The lack of just left field weird shit that the first one had isn't in this one. And, the shock value of the first one can never be translated to this one either. Because in the second and third one, all the summer camp kids are played by people in their 30s and 40s. So, they're not teenagers very clearly. Whereas in Sleepaway Camp 1, some of them were teenagers. Again, it's not a great film. But it's especially the end chase scene where she's chasing the girl down. It's so just oddly slow. I definitely recommend watching this one, though, if you're going to watch the Sleepaway Camp movie. I skipped the third one, but you always watch the first two. But the first one, you'll see where I have that ranked later. Number 28 is Nightmare Cinema, an anthology horror film featuring the works of great Joe Dante and Mick motherfucking Garris. This is a 5-story anthology film. I loved 2 of them. The first one and the last one. So it starts really strong and it ends really strong. And it's the middle where I just kind of don't really care. I'll go through the middle first because that's where the complaints lie. The second one was about a woman who her fiance has her plastic surgery arranged to make her look terrible and disfigured, and it's just really just kind of like, why is this happening? And it's a little confusing and just not a lot scary. The third one is about a possession, and that one literally almost put me to sleep because A, it was confusing, and B, I just didn't care. And the third story is about like this woman who is in a doctor's appointment with her kids, but it turns out she's not in a doctor's appointment, and those kids really aren't her kids, and she might be dead, and that whole thing was really fucking confusing too. I was really just confused for the whole middle part of this movie. But the first one knocked it out of the park. So the first one, you start out with this like typical slasher, like these teens running from this guy with a welder's outfit, and you're like, oh, okay, it's the normal slasher thing. And it turns out the kids' brains have been taken over by space bugs, and like there's a scene where this chick's head splits open and you see the bug in her brain, which is fucking gonna haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. And so the killer is actually just he's the hero, trying to stop these bugs from reaching the mainland. That is a fucking great twist, and that needs to be the whole movie in of itself. Now, the fifth and final one was interesting too, because it's about like a piano prodigy kid. His parents are murdered by this guy, and he almost dies in the accident. Well, the accident / guy trying to murder them. He almost dies, but he survives so he can see the dead. And his mom is trying to get him to cross over anyway, and kills a girl, but that's never like brought up as a problem in the future. And the guy comes back to finish the fucking job in the hospital, and there's a lot of open-endedness about like if this kid's gonna die or not, but like it was suspenseful. Like I was on the edge of my seat. Like, is this kid gonna get murdered? Like I don't know. So yeah, it starts and finishes really strong, but that middle part you could just cut that out, and I would just watch those two shorts and be totally fine with that. Number 27 is Fred the Movie. See, I told you guys this would not be super high on the list. It's not that I don't hate it, but I'm not like, Fred the Movie is the greatest thing, is the greatest piece of cinema. I don't have a poster of it over here. It's not my fave. It's just better than some of these other movies, at least experience-wise for me. Before I get into the things I like, let me address the things that I dislike that I know other people dislike. The voice is annoying. But I did grow up on the Fred videos as a kid, and I was still fairly young when this aired on Nick. So there's a little bit of nostalgia there for me. It kind of shows my age of that this is nostalgic. It's not like hardcore good nostalgia, but it's there. Also, another thing that is really not great about this movie is that the message it kind of sends. Because like Fred is like obsessing over Judy, and Bertha kind of shows him attention, and he's like, that's great. And then when Judy shows him attention, then he's like, I'm going back to her. That's not the best message either. And I know there's like a darker story of Fred that his mother's like an alcoholic and kind of abusive. But I love the lady that plays his mom in these movies. I think she does a great job with the character. The guy who plays Kevin is great. Jeanette McCurdy is great. Some of like the cameo roles, like was that a guy named Gary Anderson, I think is the guy's name, in the laundromat, and he's like, he's fun. Fred's interaction with the deer is super. Fred can get annoying very fast. It's just that there are some things in this movie that are kind of funny. Kind of. Like when he's digging the hole and then he comes up and he's like the Asian kids next door and he's like, we go to China. Like that's kind of humorous. Again, the humor is very lowbrow, but in the John Cena bits, it fucking throws him through a table. It's great. And I'm a big wrestling fan, so you know, when you put wrestling in my movies, I'm like, yeah, it's the height of luxury. So you know, again, is Fred the movie, you know, a good movie? No. Is it a fun movie to watch on occasion? Yeah. Number 26 is a cult classic film that I'm probably going to get flack for putting this low on the list. Maniac Cop. I did not get to watch the whole trilogy because A, it didn't fit the theme, and B, I kind of watched this one before the theme on a whim. 2, I was not the biggest fan of it, and I'm very upset that it didn't hit all the juicy notes with me that I wanted it to hit, because I was really excited about this. I had heard a lot of good things about it, being a part of the horror community, and I was like ready to go with it. And then I just watched it, and it's kind of slow. Also, it threw me off a little bit because I thought it was just going to be a cop killing people, which is a little bit of a hot button topic these days. And it turns out he's like a cop who was that kind of cop, who got put in jail and murdered, and now he's a zombie cop, somehow. And Robert Zadar's performance as the titular Maniac Cop, he's great. He's got a very distinct look, does a fine job at it, and Bruce Campbell's in this movie. And Bruce Campbell's energy is usually, I mean, look at Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2 and on. The energy. And in this one, he's almost this kind of reactive. He's not very like Bruce Campbell. And I wish he was. Also, Richard Roundtree is in this, so like motherfucking Shaft is in this, and Ash is in this, and there's not a huge amount of character stuff wrong. And the deaths aren't as gory as I'd like them to be with a zombie cop. Like I said, it's not a bad movie. It just takes a little bit to get going. And it just wasn't something that just glaringly stood out to me. So hopefully I'll watch this in a few years and be like, I was wrong, put it higher. But for now, it sits at number 26.